Scripting is my favorite area of FileMaker. It allows me to place an interface on a database to transform it into a solution. Users shouldn't have to know the entire feature set of FileMaker in order to use your solution. For instance, we have this slide. It allows you to go forward and backwards through the slides. It's done in FileMaker, so it doesn't need features like replace field contents or delete all records and things like that. So why should the user have to know how to do those things? They just need to use your solution. So that's what scripting is for, is to make an interface so you don't have to show the status toolbar. And you can even change the menus so they have limited menus here. They don't need to see delete all records. It's just not necessary for the slideshow. They just need what they need to get their job done. And any more is just confusing for them. So scripting allows you to automate what you can do manually by connecting a complex series of steps into one button. So this done button right here could go ahead and do quite a few things. For example, let's say we wanted to go ahead and print a report, and this was a sub-summary report like we've done already. Well, you might have to go to a particular layout. You might have to sort the database for the sub-summary to show up properly. You might have to set up the print setup or page setup to landscape or portrait. You might have to actually select the printer with the print dialog, and then once you print it, then you'd have to go ahead and navigate back to the original layout because you're going to have your data entry and your print layout separate. Now, having a user try to remember all those steps is going to be mind-boggling. Why not just create a script that will do all those things for them? You click the button, it does all those things, and they never even appear to leave the current layout. That's what scripting is all about, to automate things, to make it easier. So a script is first and foremost automation. It can automate for a user by putting an interface on it. It can even help a developer who doesn't really need a gigantic interface but might have something they do a lot in a database and want something that automates that process to make it easier for them. But FileMaker is also a macro. And a macro, if you have ever used one, remembers what you did. It records what you're doing. If you click over here and go to this dialog and type this value in, when you play that macro back, it'll do it and it'll show you all those things. All those dialogs will show up, all those clicks, all that typing. It'll go in real time, the same speed. So FileMaker can do that. It doesn't really record, but it is kind of like a macro, and if you've used one, this will help you to understand what it is. It allows you to put a whole bunch of steps together into one button. And where it differs from a macro is you really don't have to show those dialogues or those other steps if you don't want to. In fact, with our example of the print report, it would go ahead and print, and you would never even leave the current layout. You'd never see anything happen. It would just appear that it went ahead, the job came out of the printer. It makes things that easy for the user. But FileMaker is also a programming language. It has a lot of decision-making process in it. There's a step called the if statement, and that allows you to decide, do I want to go here or do I want to go there? Normally that decision is made by the user or the developer. They're saying, I want to go to this layout or maybe I want to go to that layout. Well, you can make that decision through a script so they can click a button and based on the contents of the record you can say, oh, I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to do this or that. There's another step called set field, and it allows you to place a value into field, and it seems pretty simple, but it allows you to place a value into field based on a calculation even if that field's not on the layout. And if you're going to do that manually, you'd have to actually have that field on the layout to type that value in. So it can make things a lot easier as far as putting something into a field that the user doesn't necessarily need to see it. You'll understand why that's important later. But the purpose of a script is, the programming aspect of it is, you can do some things that you can't do manually with it. So essentially what a script does is it repeats anything you can do manually, but with decision-making abilities. And also, I'd add on to that, it's kind of a simplified definition, but there's several things that you can do inside the control section of scripting that allow you to go ahead and do some cool stuff that you really couldn't do manually with FileMaker. So hopefully you'll appreciate scripting as much as I do. It's the number one thing for me in FileMaker. I love it. It allows me to make a solution. And so you really want to understand scripting very well so you can go ahead and make your database easy for the people who are using your solution.